Greetings and welcome back to yet another episode of the Daily Run, and today we're playing as Judas. The very first few floors are very crucial if you want to have a good run. I feel like they really set the tone, and depending on which items you get or maybe which consumables you get and how you use them, of course, can really just make a difference between if a run feels good or if it doesn't. And in this particular one, the very first few floors basically had no consumables. We didn't find a key, we didn't find any bombs, we had pennies but we had no ways to use them, and even the black room that dropped just now was kinda useless to us. It just produce a crawl space that really didn't lead us anywhere. And I feel like when that happens, especially on a character like Judas, you're left in a very stressful situation because you're basically just trying to survive. And of course, if you don't find a way to get more health or find a way to get more maybe spirit hearts or maybe just health containers, you're gonna be left in a very bad position and you're just gonna be kind of struggling to survive. And this is exactly what ended up happening to me in the very first few floors. I was kind of thinking in a different way than I think I usually would. And it sucks, you know, to walk by a treasure room or by a shop and you know that maybe on the other side lies salvation, but you just can't go to it because the run wasn't nice enough for you. And to kind of put a dot on that eye that I just wrote, we are fighting Bighorn, and that might not seem like like a problem because he tends to be a relatively easy boss, but the problem with Bighorn is that he can spawn a super troll bomb, or at least the big one, and he can spawn two of them, and I think maybe sometimes even three. And what ends up happening, of course, if only one of those hits you, you're gonna die because they do a full heart of damage. And this is something that I think happened to a few fellow players of Isaac. I know that someone mentioned it in the forums, or I mean on the Reddit at the very least, and to know that maybe this is again just induced by variance, obviously it sucks, right? Because I feel like to a certain point you can't really predict what's gonna happen the rest of the run. So should you go to the boss, or maybe should you go and explore the rest of the rooms, it's a gamble, and it's a decision I don't think you can make lightly, because if you go to the boss fight, at least you have a chance to get more health containers, because if there is a hard room, then you're gonna have more chances to survive it. But if you go and explore the rest of the floors first, I mean the rest of the rooms on the floor first, then what's gonna end up happening is it's very easy that one of those rooms has a champion variant in them, and of course that's just gonna end up killing you right out there and then. And there's really nothing you can do about it. So it's a decision that I feel like you really can't make unless you know what's gonna happen in advance. And of course, looking back at it, if I thought about what I should have done, I should have definitely explored the rest of the floor first, because at least then I would have gotten a key. And with the key, I could have gotten maybe to the shop, and if there was a spirit card, I could have bought that, and then of course, then only after that, I could have gone to the boss, and that would have allowed me to get another health upgrade in the form of the halo. So that would have turned out a lot better if I went in that direction, but obviously at the time I didn't know that, so I just figured I'm gonna try and beat the boss, I'm gonna try to get some upgrade that's gonna help me stay alive, and I hope maybe that's gonna be enough. Well, luckily, after that particular point, the run did kind of start taking off. We got a lot of damage upgrades. I just picked up Infestation 2, as you just saw, and we got the Ivy Bag, and Ivy Bag is obviously one of those items that when you find it, you kind of cherish it. Not kinda, but you do cherish it, because it's so good. It gives you money, it gives you power, it gives you pennies, it gives you, what else does it give? It gives you score, of course, and it gives you, I would say, some invulnerability and also some safety in just knowing that you can kind of self-inflict the damage to you and survive through maybe what the enemies are throwing at you. And of course, if you have something like the Polaroid, that just allows you to be much safer. You can trigger the spike chest, you can go and do the devil beggars, you can go and do, of course, the blood bank machines, and all of those things allow you to kind of spiral out the control. I think another use of it that kind of became very prevalent in Afterbirth Plus with the inclusion of Ace of Clubs card and Ace of Diamonds and Ace of basically anything, is that you can spawn a lot of pennies in a particular room. You can just go through the rest, of course pick up the hearts, then you spawn a bunch of pennies in the room, and then you transform those pennies into a bomb or keys or maybe even other pennies, and then you hope maybe that some of those pennies are lucky pennies or maybe nickels or dimes. Of course that's gonna give you more money on average than if you just use the Ivy Bag naturally. So it just all aspects, Ivy Bag is a good item, and it just keeps getting better, I would say. It was good in the original game, but with all the inclusions of all the synergies that require self-harm, and for you to have a way to kind of safely trigger that is definitely going to be, I think, one of the S tier items that you can find on the run, and it's relatively, I would say, readily accessible, because it's very likely you're going to find at least one blood bank, and of course when you play the one blood bank, there's a pretty good chance that you're going to get the Ivy Bag out of it. And when you have a weak run like this one, or at least a run that starts out weakly like this one did, then at least you can feel safe in the notion that you know that you're gonna have this good item that's gonna allow you to really, I would say, spiral out of control past a certain point. And maybe the only complaint I would have about this run past the first few floors that they really weren't kind to us in terms of consumables is the fact that we got the room back. And of course the room back is not really gonna do much for us other than enable breaking, and this is not something I really wanted on this run. It felt like a little bit of a skill check at a certain point, especially the start, because you kind of have to make it through that if you want to have a good score in the end. But then when you get the room back, and all of that is kind of tossed down the window, and of course if you find it and if you have enough patience, you can probably break the game with it, and that's going to allow you to get even more points without necessarily requiring you to play well and really get through some of those first few floors. Looking back on it though, I still feel like I took a little bit too much damage. I definitely feel like I played well, I was in the zone, maybe just a little bit tired, but that's not really all that important. But I definitely felt like I played well overall, and I still managed to actually take quite a bit of hits. So just in that regard, I don't think the run wasn't really nice, and of course I think this is also apparent from the fact that we didn't get a lot of spirit hearts or just health on the early floors, but it kind of, I would say, dissipated, but the run remained hard, or at least at a level which I felt like I really couldn't tackle it. Because my reflexes weren't fast enough or whatever, so I just felt like I was taking too much damage. But in the end, my damage penalty actually wasn't all that high, and if you look at it when it's gonna pop up in just a second here, it's 3,400 points, and 3,400 points of damage penalty is not a lot, but it felt like I actually got hit more times than I did. So what am I trying to say with this is I'm just trying to say that sometimes you might feel like you're playing a little bit worse than you actually are playing as, and it's worth it just to go to the end, and of course just realizing that the advantages that you do have on the run, in this example I think that's a shrag bonus, are gonna kinda outweigh the negatives that you're gonna experience. For example, in this case, the damage penalty. Of course, our attack penalty was also relatively high, but I think that's a good indication that we actually got a few select strong items. And I think the biggest part of it is we broke 40,000 points on a run that was going to Shoal, and just at any point where I don't have to go to Shoal and fight Satan, I consider that a good daily. And with that said, I think this was definitely a good daily as well. Sure, it had a little bit of a rough start, but in the end, I think everything turned out okay. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed this one, guys, and I hope to see you next time.